The cold night air bit at Edward's face as he stood on the desolate platform of Maple Hollow Station. The station, long abandoned, was little more than a rumor whispered in local pubs, a ghost story about a train that appeared without a sound, whisking passengers away, never to be seen again. Edward wouldn't have believed it if it weren't for the fact that his wife, Clara, had vanished from this very station 6 months ago. Desperation led him here tonight. It was just past midnight when the first signs appeared. A chilling draft swept through the platform, though the air had been still moments ago. Then, faintly at first, Edward felt a rhythmic vibration beneath his feet. No whistle, no grinding of metal, just a deep, resonant hum that grew stronger with each passing second. From the darkness emerged the train, a sleek, black locomotive with windows glowing faintly yellow. The cars seemed impossibly long, stretching into the void. As it came to a halt, Edward noticed its wheels didn't screech or grind. The train was eerily silent, as if it moved without friction, without purpose. The door to the nearest car slid open. A dense fog rolled out, obscuring the steps. Edward hesitated, his heart pounding in his chest. "Clara," he whispered, gripping her photograph tightly in his hand. He stepped aboard. Inside, the train was a time capsule of luxury, plush red velvet seats, ornate chandeliers, and golden trim. Yet, something was wrong. The air was thick, heavy with a metallic tang. The passengers sat in silence, their faces pale and emotionless. None acknowledged his presence. Edward's voice faltered as he asked, "Does anyone know what happened to Clara?" No one answered. He moved deeper into the car. A young boy sat clutching a toy train, his gaze fixed on nothing. An elderly woman stared out the window at a black void where the world should have been. Edward's pulse quickened. "Please," he begged, "I need answers." At the end of the car, a figure caught his attention. A conductor in an immaculate black uniform stood, his face obscured by shadows. His voice was low and resonant when he spoke, though his lips never moved. "You seek answers, but they come with a cost." Edward thrust Clara's photograph toward the conductor. "My wife. She boarded this train months ago. Where is she?" The conductor tilted his head, a movement that felt mechanical, unnatural. "She is here, as are all who seek the train." He gestured to the passengers. Edward's blood ran cold as he realized their faces began to shift, to blur, becoming familiar. He saw Clara among them, her eyes vacant, her expression empty. "No." Edward lunged toward her, but an invisible force pushed him back. "Those who board the silent train never leave," the conductor intoned. "They become part of its journey, forever seeking, forever lost." Edward refused to accept it. "I won't leave without her." The conductor stepped closer, his shadow stretching impossibly long. "Then you will stay." The train lurched forward, faster than Edward thought possible. The windows revealed not landscapes but swirling mists, shifting faces screaming silently within them. The other passengers began to turn toward Edward, their faces contorting, melting into hollow-eyed specters. Edward screamed, clutching Clara's photo. The train's hum grew louder, deafening, consuming him. The next morning, Maple Hollow Station was empty once more. No sign of the train, no sign of Edward. Only his wife's photograph remained, lying on the platform, its edges singed. Answer: the silent train continues its journey, picking up passengers who never return, each one seeking something they can never find. Elliot was an experienced hiker, the type who sought out uncharted trails and remote landscapes. When he heard whispers in the local town about the humming forest, he dismissed them as small-town superstition. Locals claimed the forest sang an unearthly tune that could draw people into its depths, never to return. For Elliot, it sounded like an adventure. Armed with a map and supplies, he ventured into the forest on a brisk autumn morning. The trees stood tall and ancient, their bark twisted as if frozen mid-writhe. At first, the forest was silent save for the crunch of leaves beneath his boots. Then, as he ventured deeper, he heard it, a faint hum, low and rhythmic, like the wind was playing a melody through the trees. He stopped and tilted his head, curious. The sound wasn't unpleasant. In fact, it was almost soothing. But as it grew louder, it became dissonant, an ever-changing tune that didn't seem to have an end or beginning. The deeper he went, the stronger the humming became. It resonated in his chest, vibrating through his bones. He glanced at his compass, it spun uselessly. Checking his map, he realized with growing unease that none of the landmarks matched. It was as if the forest had shifted around him. Elliot tried to retrace his steps, but the hum grew louder still, drowning out his thoughts. He caught flickers of movement out of the corner of his eye, shadows darting between the trees, their shapes indistinct. He turned quickly, only to see nothing but the forest. As night fell, the humming turned into a haunting chorus, layers of sound overlapping in a maddening symphony. He tried covering his ears, but the melody seemed to seep into his mind, bypassing sound entirely. He began to feel pulled. Elliot stumbled upon a clearing, where the trees formed a perfect circle. In the center stood a massive, ancient oak, its trunk adorned with strange symbols that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The hum originated from this tree, its vibrations shaking the ground. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from behind the oak. It was a man, or at least it had been once. His eyes were hollow, his skin pale and stretched tight over his bones. "They called us too," the figure rasped, his voice merging with the hum. "We listened too long." Elliot tried to back away, but his feet refused to move. The ground beneath him seemed alive, gripping him in place. The figure raised a skeletal hand and pointed toward the oak. "You'll join us soon." As the humming reached a crescendo, Elliot's vision blurred. The forest seemed to close in around him, the trees bending unnaturally, their branches reaching like claws. He felt his thoughts slipping away, replaced by the song, until he was nothing more than a vessel for its melody. Weeks later, locals reported seeing a new shadow among the trees, a flicker of movement that wasn't there before. The humming grew louder, its tune subtly changed, as if another voice had joined the choir of the humming forest. No one dared enter.